Hello and welcome to the Airline Weekly Lounge. I'm your host Gordon Smith and I'm joined as usual by co-host Jay Shabit. In part 1 we're unpacking the latest numbers from Air France-KLM, and in part 2 we're making sense of some impressive financials from the Latam Group. Hey Jay, how's it going?
All right, Gordon, how's it going?
Doing very, very well. We're recording here on Tuesday, 5th of August. Can't believe we're in August already. And we've got some breaking news just as we're coming on air with regard to Air Europa. Regular listeners of the show, regular readers of Airline Weekly will be aware that a fairly meaty stake of Air Europa is potentially up for grabs. Previous suitors, Lufthansa Group, Air France-KLM, Turkish Airlines. What we're just getting through on the newswires now is that Lufthansa is no longer interested in acquiring a stake in Air Europa. That was through a spokesperson for the German airline group. Here's a quote for you from Lufthansa. Quote, here we are. After thorough analysis and intense negotiations, we have at this stage decided against further engaging in a capital contribution and shareholding in Air Europa. You might recall Air Europa is controlled by Globalia. That's around an 80% stake, a family sort of empire there out of Spain. The remainder is still owned by IAG. So really, Jay, this leaves just Turkish Airlines still in the bidding, with previous reports that Air France-KLM had also dropped out of the process. What's your initial take on that breaking news?
Yeah, right. Lufthansa and Air France-KLM, the reports say, are have pulled out. So, quite a surprise, actually, because I think both of those airlines were certainly interested. And Air Europa and its Madrid hub seems to, it just seems like a hub that would fit very well with the networks of either of those two carriers. Yeah, at this point, we don't know why, but the initial suspect would be that perhaps the price was too high, or the terms are too onerous, but we'll have to wait and see if we learn at all about why exactly they pulled out. But as you say, that does leave Turkish Airlines. From one, I'd have to believe that IAG, which tried to buy Air Europa itself, but ran into regulatory resistance, they actually do retain an ownership stake, a minority ownership stake. I'd have to believe that they're happy about this. They wouldn't be too enthused about seeing Air Europa fall into the hands of either Lufthansa or Air France-KLM. I think if you ask them, they probably prefer that it fall into the hands of Turkish if that winds up the way it goes. Know that there's, as many synergies there between an Air Europa and a Turkish. So, perhaps count IAG as a winner here. But as you suggested, Gordon, it's all kind of unfolding as we speak. So we'll have to wait and withhold full judgment there.
Well, if you want full judgment, the next issue of Airline Weekly, we will have more insight on that developing story. And we should say that neither Globalia or Turkish Airlines were immediately available for comment. And also, just sticking to the Iberian Peninsula very selfishly here, speaking to you from Portugal, TAP Air Portugal is still, of course, a hot topic in takeover circles or M&A circles, depending on your point of view. Both Lufthansa, Air France-KLM, and I think IAG are all still very actively engaged there. So plenty to discuss, Jay. But let's get back onto the here and now with regard to quarterly financials. We've had Air France-KLM report in the past few days. If anyone's coming into this a little cold, tell our listeners what they need to know, the headline numbers, if you will, from Air France-KLM.
Sure. So Air France-KLM reported a 9% operating margin, which was a little bit, if you want to get real precise, 8.7, and that compares to Lufthansa's 8.4. So essentially neck and neck with Lufthansa there. I won't tell you what IAG reported because I don't want to embarrass anybody.
I preferred your original saying, IAJ. I didn't know if you were going in for a big merger.
Oh, did I say the International Airlines J Group? No,
J Group.
just a mispronunciation there. No, so IAG, in all seriousness, had a 19% operating margin. So you can see they're just kind of they're playing in a different stratosphere. But Air France-KLM in a 9% for them, that's pretty solid. Air France itself, the Paris-based airline, 9.5%, and they actually improved their results from 4% last year. Now, the year-over-year comparison was a little bit, you have to be a little careful because there was the Olympics last year that kind of messed up traffic. But let's put that aside and just say Air France itself had an excellent second quarter, and then we'll talk a little bit about why in a moment. KLM, on the other hand, continues to struggle. It wasn't a terrible quarter by any means. They had a 6% operating margin, but that was down from 8% a year ago. That also kind of conflicts with the way things used to work within the Air France-KLM Group. Used to always be like KLM was the superstar. They were kind of like the Swiss of the Air France-KLM Group. And if you know what I'm talking about there, Swiss is always kind of the superstar airline for the Lufthansa Group. KLM was like that, but it's not like that anymore. Just 6%. Transavia, poor quarter, just 1%. Um, they have a big, pretty, sizable maintenance business too, which is just actually bigger than Transavia. That did fairly well, 5%. And then they have a very profitable loyalty program with about, I think they said 20 million members. And that's a very, very, very high margin business. A little bit smaller though, just a couple $100 million in revenue. So that is the lay, kind of the lay of the land there between, which airlines, how each airline is performing within the group. Shall I get into a little more detail for each, Gordon?
I was going to try and impress you, Jay, by saying sort of something smart in French to kick off our Air France specific conversation, but I'm not going to embarrass myself. Go ahead, tell us in very English terms, why was Air France's Q2 so good?
You want to speak in French? I would love to hear that. I'm not going to stop you, but for now we'll
No,
stay in English.
let's go for
And
that.
yeah, so Air France, the question is, why did they have such a good quarter? So a big this is not going to surprise anyone, but premium demand is just very, very, very strong, pretty much everywhere in the world. And Air France is a very premium airline. They've pushed in that direction very hard. They've increased their premium capacity. They have a first class, they have a business class, they have premium economy, and they are they're doing very well on all of those that segment of the business. In fact, they literally, I mean, this is a quote. They said they saw a huge, quote unquote, huge increase in our performance of La Première. That's their kind of business section there, business slash first section. Um, and even more interestingly, they said that a lot of that increase is coming from the leisure passenger, not the business passenger. So they said leisure is more than half of all the premium demand that they're getting. So it's very different in the past when business class would be for business travelers, not anymore. And they're also including premium economy in that statistic as well. But you can see just more people flying to a place like Paris, obviously a giant tourism destination. A lot of people just spending that extra money on vacation to sit in the nicer seats. Another quote here: "It's absolutely unbelievable if you look at how the performance has improved over the last few years," talking about the La Première section. So there you go, Air France. Let me say a minute, there's only a few areas of the business that they said were a little bit on the weaker end. So they did say that, as other airlines have said, that the transatlantic U.S. demand a little bit weaker on the price sensitive side. So the economy class, going between Paris and the U.S., a little bit weaker there. That's true to Amsterdam as well. They did mention some short haul European capacity pressures. Okay, not not terribly interesting there. The only other region that they mentioned where there was some level of distress was the Caribbean, and sounds like that's just a capacity thing. People going either on vacation from Europe to the Caribbean, or there's some family visit traffic there as well. But keep those in mind. There's one more, and this is going to be my segue into KLM, but there's one more segment that is having a difficult time right now, and that is transfer traffic or connecting traffic to the US. So, for example, Air France and KLM are seeing less connecting traffic to, from example, or so let's say from example, India, Africa, Middle East to the US. And that kind of runs in tandem with just the overall general decline in visitation to the US for a whole variety of reasons that many of you are familiar with. But seeing less of that connecting traffic. Now, which airline is more dependent on sixth freedom, let's call it connecting traffic, Air
Good
France or
question.
KLM? It's KLM. And so KLM is the one feeling the pain of that more than Air France. So that's a good kind of start in trying to understand why KLM is underperforming Air France all of a sudden. They have less premium, more connecting, so they're kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time, whereas Air France is in the right place at the wrong time. You can think about it that way. Um, there are other things going on in KLM. They've seen very big increase in cost, particularly labor cost. They're still trying to negotiate a new pilot agreement. They've had some operational issues, and then very, very serious issue to them. And I'm looking for the exact words they used here, but do I have it here? Yeah, the quote unquote crazy increase of the tariffs, which they're talking about the just the charges and at Schiphol Airport. So Amsterdam Airport has increased the fees and the rates to fly there dramatically, and that's
Yeah,
been
they said about 41%, they said, or
for over
thereabouts.
40%. Yeah, yeah. So you can imagine how that is weighing on KLM as well. So they also, I guess, one last point here that they gave about KLM. They did introduce a new kind of premium economy. They call it premium comfort class, and seems to be doing very well. But they throwing in another quote here, so it's not me talking, it's them talking. "Quote unquote, we were late to this market." So they wish they, maybe moved a little bit earlier on that, but they weren't able to take full advantage in the second quarter. So pretty clear about Air France and KLM. Gordon, can I move on to Transavia?
I actually remember, Jay, KLM launching Premium Comfort. I was on the very first flight,
Oh, cool. Did not know that.
September 1st, 2022, I want to say,
Okay.
off the top of my head. And yeah, they admitted at the time this was a product that they should have introduced a long time ago. But as we're recording here today, on August 5th, I've still got my head in July. I don't know why. This summer's going so quickly. Korean Air just announced separately that they are finally rolling out their premium economy on a select number of around 11 Boeing 777s from mid-September. So never too late to join
Oh,
the premium economy party. That's the message from my side.
yeah, about time for Korean. Wow, they must have seen their friends over their Sky Team friends over at KLM and Air France. Say, whoa, we got to do this too.
Indeed. Okay, I didn't get to say in French why Air France's Q2 was so good, and you had a very, very slick segue with KLM, so I didn't get to jump in there. But how's this for Transavia? Because Transavia, as you know, will be Transavia France and Transavia Holland. Here's a bit of Dutch, just to make sure that we're making everyone feel nice and international here today. Waarom was het tweede kwartaal van Transavia Holland zo slecht?
Ooh la la.
That was me asking, why was the second quarter for Transavia Holland so bad?
Okay, well, I'm going to do this in English, but so for one, they had a strike in France. So Transavia has two kind of double identities. Let's say they have a French Transavia and a Dutch Transavia. The French one got hit by some strikes. Both of those airlines were hit by heavy competition on Spanish routes. Those are big leisure routes, particularly think about the second quarter. A lot of leisure travelers in that quarter. A lot of leisure travel. Um, Transavia Dutch, they were subject to the airport charges that I mentioned in Amsterdam, the hike there, the big hike. They even said that people from, and I was kind of looking at the map, and it kind of makes sense for probably the people in southern Netherlands, like Eindhoven, they're driving over to, or maybe taking the train over to Dusseldorf or Brussels. You can do that. It's not that far. So they're losing traffic because of the increased charges at Amsterdam Airport. And you can see trends, the Air France-KLM, Transavia management kind of, they're trying to send a message to the government, to the airport, like, hey, look, you gotta, be careful. Don't kill the golden goose here. Don't drive away. This our air traffic, which is very important to the economy. So they made that point. And then finally, Transavia, they are they are pretty exposed to the Middle East. So if you think about routes like to Lebanon, Israel, some other routes in that area, and because of the geopolitical unrest and things like that, that did take a toll on Transavia. So as I mentioned, their margins are very weak in the second quarter. There's one thing I should mention about Transavia. I think it's an important point to make is that Air France took a lot of their kind of short haul traffic, domestic traffic, short haul, within Europe, that was losing money, and they kind of pushed it over to Transavia at Orly Airport. Basically, everything that Air France flew at Orly Airport, that's the secondary Parisian airport, they pushed it over to Transavia. So some of that stuff is going to be a little bit loss making, perhaps, but in the strategic thinking of management, better to have it lose less at Transavia, which has lower cost, than to have it lose more at Air France. So, maybe forgive a couple of points of margin for that. So I think we covered pretty much the all three uh, of the subgroups there, the sub airlines.
For
But there
sure.
is one airline that's in the group now that's not quite fully in the group. But
A
who's
new
that?
arrival, Jay.
What's that?
A new arrival.
A new arrival, yeah, a new arrival, and that would be SAS in Scandinavia.
Absolutely.
Yep, and they own 20%, but they're moving up to more like 60%. So they're going to have full control before long, and so that is a clear indication that the integration and the consolidation has gone pretty well to date. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made that decision to control. So things are probably going pretty well. Now with SAS, the very big key for them is joining that transatlantic joint venture with Delta Air France, with Delta and Virgin Atlantic. If they can get into that, Air France KLM is willing to, or so they say, willing to commit to more wide bodies for SAS. That will open up more opportunities for them to fly long haul for Copenhagen. So I thought that was interesting. Final thing I'll say about SAS, they are clearly, and I say they, I mean Air France KLM management, is clearly starting to use Copenhagen and SAS as leverage against Amsterdam in particular, but even France and Paris, I would say. Basically, putting up the threat, hey, look, if you're going to, increase Schiphol's fees by, more than 40%, we're going to have to consider Copenhagen as an alternative place of growth.
A bit
So
of the old O'Leary playbook.
the old O'Leary playbook, and even the IAG does that to a very, very aggressively. Whereas they'll say, hey, Vueling, you're not, your costs are not down where we like them. We'll give these max jets to Aer Lingus, or I'm just using that example. But you could see how you can, when you have these kind of European multiple airline groups, you could sort of play them off one another, and you could sort of use them as leverage against the government. So they literally, I mean, they weren't too subtle about it either. I have, the quote is a little bit awkward here, but it says, we do have Copenhagen as an alternative. Ideally, we would have organic growth out of SAS, but we could move some CapEx or slow down some CapEx at Air France or KLM to allocate to SAS. So you can see they're not even like being shy or, subtle about it.
Yeah, no, that's pretty explicit, Jay. And we should say, if anyone missed it, we did have an interview with the SAS CEO, Anke van der Werf, in the last, I think it was 2 issues ago, of Airline Weekly. So go have a look through the archives there, airlineweekly.com, and get more detail.
Yeah, definitely check that out, because some of these things we mentioned, like the JV, Gordon and I go talk about that. So yeah, that's check that out.
Lots of additional nuance and background. Thank you for that, Jay. Enjoyed our tour across continental Europe. We are sticking with the international theme this week. We're going to be discussing Latam in part 2. But before that, a quick reminder to send any questions or comments that you might have for us to podcast@skift.com. That's podcast with an S at the end. And please don't forget to follow or subscribe to the podcast, wherever you're listening or watching. And if you are enjoying the show, please rate us 5 stars or leave us a positive review so we can continue to spread the word about the Airline Weekly Lounge. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to the Airline Weekly Lounge. I'm Gordon Smith, joined as usual by co-host Jay Shabbat. Part 1, we were discussing Air France, KLM, and a few other assorted European tidbits. Part 2, we are turning our attention to South America, Latam Airlines Group, to be precise, Jay, because we've had numbers out of them as well. What do our listeners need to know about Latam?
They are just doing fantastically well, and if you want to listen to, if you're in a bad mood and you feel like smiling, you know, just listen to the Latam earnings call for Q2. It's just a very happy call. Everything's going well, and all is well in Latam land. They actually produced a 13% operating margin in the second quarter, and that's an off-peak quarter for them. So 13% is excellent. They did only 9% the same quarter last year. So they're going to have just a really, really good year. If they're, if they come in even at the lower end of their operating margin guidance, they're probably going to be one of the most profitable airlines in the world this year. And why is that? Well, some of you at this point have already gotten to read our feature story, which kind of goes in depth from the Airline Weekly issue this week. That goes in depth explaining what exactly is going on, what's kind of driving this these happy circumstances. But it's just to be very brief. Their cost structure is basically the same now, particularly non-fuel cost, basically the same now as it was in 2019 before COVID. It's almost as if COVID, never happened, or as if all the inflation post COVID never happened. And you can see, in our feature story this week is some numbers comparing them to, I think did we compare them to Delta? I think just a dramatic difference in inflation. Latam has basically experienced no inflation really in the past 6 years. So that's been super, super helpful. How have they been able to achieve that? Well, they went through a very thorough restructuring in bankruptcy, and they did it at a very, very good time when they were able to lock in very, very low rates for aircraft leases. So they are paying well, well below market on a big portion of their fleet. And a lot of that cost advantage is going to be locked in for really through the end of the decade, more or less. So they're in a very, very nice situation. Now, as far as revenues go, unit revenues, they've increased significantly. So you had your costs remain flat, but unit revenues went way up. So it's just a much stronger airline now than it was. Why are the unit revenues up? If I said that word that starts with a P again, well that well that I every time it seems to be universal every time I talk about any airline. But the premium segment has really been
Ding, ding, ding.
there it is. Yep. It's just been great for everybody, and Latam, sure enough, has said, yeah, our premium is just, it's what do we call it? The Rock of Gibraltar is that what we call it here at Airline Weekly. The premium demand has just been rock solid for airlines. Really,
Without the crazy monkeys.
yeah, without the crazy monkeys. Yeah, they're yeah, that's I don't know. Some of the U.S. low cost carriers have seen those crazy monkeys in some other. Uh, as a metaphor for some of their their troubles. But no, Latam doing really, really well, and they are doing so well, in fact, that they look at their bookings, they look at what they foresee coming down the pike, and they're like, you know what, we want more planes, we want to grow even more than we're growing. They grew 8% last year. They're growing by double digits, I think, this for the full year. They want to grow even more than that. They want, give us more planes. We're hungry. We want we want to add more. So you can see it's very, very bullish.
And Jay, just taking a few highlights from the feature story in the most recent issue of Airline Weekly, measured by ASK capacity, Latam's passenger business is 17% larger today than it was in 2019. Labor costs have increased just 4%. What would you say to a listener saying, of course they're going to do well? They've basically got a monopoly on anything vaguely approaching a legacy carrier out of not just Brazil, not just out of Chile, but out of the best part of South America. This is a license to print money.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't go that far, but I would, particularly on the, it is, they do compete with European airlines on European routes and U.S. airlines on routes to the United States. So it's not like they don't have any competition, but your point is very well taken that South America as a whole is a very, very consolidated airline industry with very, very few competitors. So yes, if you're in Chile, maybe if you're going up to Peru or something, or flying domestically, you have a few low cost options. But you're right, LATAM dominates most of the Latin American, South American markets that they serve. And then of course Brazil is the big giant market in South America. And there's really only 3 players in the Brazilian market, Latam being one of them. That's pretty big market for just 3 airlines. It's, I don't know, is it the 5th or 6th biggest domestic market in the world? I mean, something like that. The population is huge. And we might even be playing a game of further subtraction here. We might be going from 3 to 2, right?
Oh, yeah. In terms of Azul and Gold.
Azul and Gol might be merging. Those are the only two that compete with Latam essentially in Brazil. And they are very closely affiliated, or Gol is very closely affiliated with Avianca. So we may arrive at a point where there's essentially 2 major airlines in all of South America. You have that kind of Avianca, Gol, Azul group, and then Latam. And then on the margins, Aerolíneas Argentina is competing on a few routes here and there, maybe, JetSmart, a low-cost carrier, things like that. But it might be like an entire continent duopolized.
Fascinating stuff, Jay. And you did touch this in the feature story just last week. Would Latam dare relaunch another airline in Argentina?
Well, I mean, it's I think they probably have many scars, many bad memories, maybe too many to ever want to step its foot into that, viper's den again. But it's at some point. It sounds like, as I talked about before, they have plenty of expansion opportunities with the hubs that they already have, with the airline operating certificates they already have. But there's got to be some, back in the recesses of their mind, some area thinking that, maybe one day, if Argentina market is doing pretty well. Like I think tourism is doing pretty well there. There have been some economic stability, so it may have crossed their mind, but I wouldn't bet on it. The scars the scars run too deep, perhaps.
Maybe an opportunity for IAJ to get down there and open up a new.
Yes.
Thank you for that insight.
IAJ is not going to Argentina. That's not.
Oh, okay. Is that an 8K?
We're gonna send International Airlines Gordon Group down there.
Oh, well, I'm up for the challenge.
IAGG.
I've been called worse. Thank you for that, Jay. That is a comprehensive insight. And
I wouldn't do that to you, Gord. I wouldn't send you down to Argentina to start an airline. That would be cruel.
Never say never.
Maybe Brazil. There might be some opportunities there. If there's just 2 airlines, you would think that would open up some windows. Now, Brazil is a very difficult market for startups. There's all sorts of cost issues. There's a lot of very heavily regulated market. There's all sorts of legal ramifications, legal exposure, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not sure I'd be doing you any favors to send the International Gordon Group down there, but it is probably there are going to be opportunities there.
For sure, yeah. I think I need to sharpen up my Portuguese as well before I
you're
open up any
that's
businesses
right.
down that way.
In Lisbon, you're already kind of in preparation mode there, exposed
Absolutely.
to the language.
Thank you for that, Jay. Sort of bit of a global whistle-stop tour.
Was that a sincere thank you? I don't think so.
I'll let our listeners decide. You can rewind. Go back 5 seconds and try and decipher if that was sincere or not. A quick reminder that as an Airline Weekly subscriber, you get access to all the airline news on skift.com, plus Skift Research's airline reports. And that's not all. If you are an Airline Weekly subscriber, you get to join us in person in Fort Worth in Texas, December 3rd. We're bringing back the Skift Aviation Forum for 2025. Go to live.skift.com for all the details. And if you are on the mood to come and join us in person, we've also got New York, the Skift Global Forum. That's mid-September in New York City. From an airline's perspective, already confirmed Tony Douglas from Riyadh Air and Tony Fernandez as well of Capital Way / AirAsia fame. Live.skift.com for all the details, the tickets and the agenda there. But I think that's all we've got time for this week. Thanks to Jay for joining me. And thanks also to our producers, Monica and Will, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye for now. Whether you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, please make sure to subscribe, rate us 5 stars, or leave us a positive review. This really helps us get the word out about the Airline Weekly Lounge, so we can continue to bring you this podcast every week, absolutely free of charge. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Skiff channel and hit the notification bell to find out whenever a new video drops.